Hey there, I'm Sharon Biddle, and I'd like to welcome you back to our Marriage Renovators channel. For anyone new here, I am a wife, mom of four, author, and marriage transformation coach. If you're anything like me, you probably feel like you do all the things all the time while trying to be and do your best for your family. Well, here on this channel, we share practical tips and strategies for parenting and navigating the married life. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Why is communication such a challenge? How can I communicate more effectively with my spouse? And why does my spouse seem to get so defensive when I'm trying to communicate? If you've asked any of these questions, I assure you, you are not alone. In this video, we're going to dive into those things and talk about how to have more effective communication in your marriage. It's true that communication is a fundamental and crucial part of any relationship. And it's definitely even more so in a marriage. Effective communication can help build a stronger relationship, while poor communication habits can leave you feeling frustrated and misunderstood. So, in this video, we're going to look at how we can build those effective communication habits, and we're going to talk about several tips that should help you do just that. The first tip that we want to go over is using I statements when you are communicating. Here, you want to make sure that you are talking in a way that is focused on you and how you feel, rather than coming off sounding like you are accusing someone or blaming someone for your current feelings. So, for example, what you want to do is say something more along the lines of, I feel frustrated when I don't have your full attention as I'm speaking to you, rather than, you never listen to me. Do you see the difference? When I say you never listen to me, automatically the person that I'm speaking to feels accused, and they are much more likely to throw up a wall and not really listen to what I have to say, because it just finished pointing my finger at them and saying, you never listen to me. Instead, if I focus on how I feel um, I when I'm feeling like I'm being overlooked, then I can bring the attention back to what it is that I want to focus on. Another way of approaching that same topic is to say, I feel really validated when you're looking at me when I'm sharing my feelings with you. Again, that throws the attention back on me as the speaker, rather than, I'm pointing my finger, I'm blaming you, you never listen to me. So it comes off with a very different sense. So when you are trying to build those communication habits with your spouse, start with that. Start by focusing on how you can use good practices of using I statements as you're trying to communicate your feelings. Next, tip number two, practice active listening. So when it's your spouse's turn to share with you how they feel, you want to be an active listener. Um, that comes in a couple of ways. If you want to establish good communication habits, let's say it's a time when you don't have a conflict and you're just simply having a conversation. There's a time and place for multitasking, but make sure that it's not your norm and your standard, that I don't really pay attention to you when you're speaking to me. Instead, I have so many other things that are much more important, and I'm going to focus on those things. So when you're talking to me and I'm texting and I'm responding and I'm emailing and I'm watching TV and I'm not looking at you, do you see how that makes you feel? You feel ignored. So, when you are trying to build those good communication habits in the early stages of making some transitions in your marriage, make sure that you're being a good active listener. Now, that also comes into play when you are trying to be or build those good communication habits in times of conflict. So, being an active listener, sometimes we have a different opinion, and that's okay. But what you want to do is still be respectful in the way that you're listening by looking at the person who's speaking to you, taking in what they're saying, seeking to understand how they what they are communicating with you, nodding your head to follow along, like I hear what you're saying. You may even respond by saying, I hear what you said about, and then just kind of summarize what they said rather than focusing on my next point. I'm so ready for him to stop talking. I'm so ready for her to stop talking because I have this and this and this to share, and I'm going to tell him about this, this, and this. If I'm focused on those things while someone is speaking to me, then I'm not giving my full attention to them, and I may miss something that is really very important that they were trying to share with me. So, being a good active listener involves eye contact and involves perhaps sometimes nodding my head as if I'm following along. It involves maybe giving a little bit of a recap to say, I heard you. You want to do all that you can to let your partner know that you empathize and that you are I'm there with you in this conversation. I don't have 10 other things that are much more important that I'd rather be doing. But right now, in this moment, I'm here with you. Go ahead and tell me what you wanted to say. That brings us to our next tip, number 3. Use nonverbal cues when you are trying to convey your understanding. So, I was just talking about nodding your head. Here's why that's important. When you are nodding your head, it's showing that you are, I'm still engaged in the next thing that you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. So, when I'm nodding my head to follow along, it helps me to stay connected with the speaker, and it helps the speaker to know that I'm connected. Whereas when I'm just looking and you're talking and I'm not doing anything with my nonverbal communication to show that I'm following along, sometimes you feel as if that person is just waiting for you to stop talking, and it really can hinder your sense of trust in knowing that they really want to hear what you have to say. The other thing is folded arms. When I have my arms folded and I am closing you off, I am showing that I'm much more defensive in this position. I might have my shoulder, like giving you my shoulder, and all those things. That does not show that I'm open to hearing what you have to say. So again, these are good communication tips that I've been teaching for years to the many students that I've worked with, and just helping students to understand and couples to understand, and people, even my own children in my home, to understand when someone is speaking to you. There's a way that you can show that you're right there with them and give the responses that help to open the doors of that communication rather than close them. So have good nonverbal cues showing that you're following along and that you are right there involved in whatever the conversation is, to show the speaker that you want to hear what they have to say. Let's Let's look at tip number 4. Avoid criticism and defensiveness. So, on the one hand, as the speaker, you want to avoid criticizing. If you want to have good communication, you want to look at how can I convey the message that I'm trying to share without sounding as if I'm being judgmental, I'm criticizing your actions and decisions. I can still convey the same message, maybe sometimes even by just asking questions that helps the person to reflect, rather than you did this, you did that, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, you made such a mess. All these things where all I'm doing is just criticizing you and whatever it is that you've done. So rather than doing that, you want to open up the doors in the of communicating by being much more approachable than that. How can you say the same message without offending? Because there's a scripture that talks about how it's easier to win over someone, a fortified city, meaning something that is super protected and guarded, than it is an offended person. And the essence of that story or that passage is just that once you've offended someone, it can be very difficult to reestablish that sense of trust in communicating with them. So you don't want to do that. And then on the other hand, don't be so quick to become defensive. So when you're the person who's listening, be slow to become defensive. Make sure you're understanding what someone is saying. Ask clarifying questions. If you're not sure what their intent is, that's okay. You can ask clarifying questions to see if you are able to follow along clearly what it is they're really trying to communicate. And then if you're defensive, then sometimes it brings out a whole different message. So I've even heard someone say, ask your spouse sometime, what is it that you thought I was trying to say? When you get a sense that this doesn't seem to be going the way I anticipated, what did you feel like I was trying to say? You can pause sometimes. You don't have to just keep going to the next thing. It's totally okay and appropriate to just pause, take a moment and say, hey, let me just stop right there for a moment. What did you feel like I was trying to say, or how did that make you feel? Or just ask some of those clarifying questions, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to hurt one another. So be careful about how you say things as well as how you receive things. Try not to be overly sensitive with your spouse. If there's something that you have a question about, ask, and that's totally fine and okay. That that brings us to tip number 5. Um, in this fifth one, you proceed cautiously here. Use some wisdom and just know your audience. Sometimes, yes, it's very helpful to ease up a tense situation by bringing in some humor. There are times in my own marriage when that has been completely appropriate and okay and well received, because it lightens the mood when you know that your intention was not to offend or to say or do anything that to upset your spouse. Then there are times when you might have to laugh it off, right? But you also have to be very wise here, because you don't want your spouse to feel like they were just ignored, or you're being insensitive or sarcastic, because those are not good feelings either. So if you get the sense that, you know what, lightening the mood right here might be a good decision, then give it a try and just proceed cautiously. I just wanted to say that. But if you feel like that's a good opportunity to do that, go ahead and give that a try in those situations that could otherwise be difficult. And sometimes it's just something that's difficult to approach, a sensitive topic, or something like that. Maybe if you can lighten the mood a little bit, then it may help to kind of move forward in a conversation that might otherwise be especially challenging to approach. Next, tip number 6: clarify expectations and boundaries. If you'd like to have good communication habits with your spouse, then you want to make sure that you also set up some good, clear boundaries. I will say, you all, as a married couple, having boundaries is absolutely non negotiable. There are some things that you can put in place together where both of you can agree that we won't cross this boundary. This is something we are not going to do. Um, so here are some examples of when you might do that. What are some of those boundaries, for example, in text messaging or in spending time with someone else of the opposite sex? If you have good, clear, open communication about those expectations, then it doesn't become a situation later where it turns into an argument because one of you felt offended by something that the other one did. My husband and I have agreed that we have access codes to social media. I know how to get into his phone. Now, do I just go on his phone and look at his text messages? No. Neither does he do that to me. However, I have no problems with him at any point. If he needed to, he could look and see what it is that I've been communicating, because I'd have nothing to hide. When you have something to hide and you can't be transparent with your spouse, that's when problems seem to arise most often. So make sure that you put some boundaries in place, and it will make both of you feel a lot more secure in moving forward. Like no one's trying to hide anything. My husband can easily access any Facebook friends or messages or anything like that that I have, because I'm not hiding anything from him. There's never an inappropriate conversation that I would have with someone of the opposite sex, because that kind of communication can definitely bring about a lot of problems that could have otherwise been avoided in your relationship. So, in our last tip, I'm going to talk about using technology to your advantage. So, we were just talking about social media access and things like that for communicating with other people. But in terms of being proactive about communicating with your spouse, using technology is such a great way to be proactive in sharing how much you love them and care about them and appreciate them. Take time to send a quick message, a quick text message, send an email, say something to say, I'm just thinking about you right now, and I miss you. Or those little things help to build strong communication. Communicating is not only about when problems arise. That's really not a good way to approach communication. You want to also be very proactive and look at how can I build a positive rapport with my spouse more consistently. And one way to do that is to stay in communication. If you're apart for some reason, like perhaps your spouse has to travel for work or business, sending a message or reaching out in some way to show that you were thinking about them can really go a long way in just reaffirming and reassuring them how much you love them and care about them. So do that consistently, and that will only help to build those stronger communication habits in your own marriage. Um, so also look at what other ways can I communicate how I'm feeling. Like, for example, send notes, write a note or a message on your mirror, put a note on the seat in their car, leave a note in their lunch bag. Anything that you can do to communicate your love and appreciation for your spouse can definitely go a long way to building that good, positive communication in your relationship. And that concludes our tips for effective communication in marriage. Remember, communication is key to a healthy and happy relationship. So implement some of these strategies, and see how you can grow and deepen your communication with your spouse. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope that you found this information helpful and informative. And if you did enjoy it, we ask you to please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more content like this. Don't forget that to hit the notification bell so that you can be alerted when we drop new videos. And then also please consider sharing this video with any other couples that you think might find it beneficial. We really appreciate your support and look forward to continuing to connect with you in our next videos. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this content. And we look forward to helping you build a stronger marriage to last.